Hey friends and family, hey fools, hey loved ones, how y'all doing? So I'm back for part 6 of self-esteem and self-realization, self-respect, self-love. Yeah, that genuine self-esteem. So I've been talking about pride and the spiritual ego or the super ego, and yeah, how we punish ourselves sometimes, like through these feelings of guilt and failure because of our expectations that we have, unrealistic expectations that we have. Yeah, either inherited beliefs or implanted beliefs, or generational, multi generational programming. Yeah, to prop up this false image. Yeah. And so my electronics have been weird and have been cutting me off in certain ways. And it's just kind of funny because I am going through this dismemberment stage, and it's just kind of humorous with the trickster at play. And so, been working with like these stories and all these archetypes and different archetypal themes, and reviewing what I've learned, what I've been able to integrate, what I've been able to remember and claim and choose and create. Like for me, during my process of healing, alchemy, being and becoming me, becoming more of who I am for all of me. And so I'll just take a minute for, yeah, just to be here and breathe and ask what wants to be shared today. Following up and following through with looking into pride and guilt and shame and where we can block ourselves and what we get to reclaim. And so it was just kind of funny. I went to hang out with a friend yesterday and got my hair done, and we got to catch up and enjoy each other's company. And yeah, mutual support, love, and admiration, and that reciprocal exchange. And we were talking about some of these themes, and she had mentioned, yeah, we're our own biggest cock blockers. And so it's like, that's so true. Yeah, we're so silly sometimes, where we get run through these fear and desire cycles and carried away. Like, yeah, but it is an invitation to return home to ourselves, to acknowledge um, and accept that invitation to come back home to ourselves. So I just wanted to share a couple of things that relate, and we'll see where it goes from here. But I was reading last time about joy and gratitude from the book Letting Go, and it just somehow, yeah, decided to just cut off where I was in joy and gratitude. Um, but yeah, that's what my focus is right now, is on joy and gratitude and what is available and what is being given and what gifts are being offered and given, and what are we being invited, yeah, to attend to, or to reclaim, or to integrate, to alchemize, to dissolve, and to release, so that we make the room to receive what we really want. But yeah, surrendering the desire, surrendering the fear, surrendering the rigidities, and letting go of the fear. And so, yeah, so just be and just be here. And so, like joy and gratitude, being grateful for the whole experience, being grateful for all of it, so that we can experience this beautiful gift of this life we get to live. embody, become, know, remember, realize, and be. So, yeah, I'll just leave it there for a minute. And I may go back to that book in a few. But yeah, just working on acceptance, really accepting other people where they're at, and allowing them to be where they're at, and allowing them their own journey and their own ways of healing and revealing and experiencing what they choose for themselves. And it has been like a little challenging to do that, and because a lot of me wants to look at what's wrong about it, because that's an old habit and an old program, instead of what's right about it. And so just remembering that, like, what's right about this? And what's full about this? And what's true about this? The truthfulness. So I feel like I'm putting some big pieces of the puzzle together, or it's just taking form right before my eyes. I'm mesmerized, realized, real eyes, realize, real eyes. Remember, we all have blind spots, weaknesses, limitations, insecurities, wounds, hopes, fears, desires, dreams, strengths, gifts, and potential. Our own lessons to learn, and our own stars to claim, to reburn, shine, purify, and experience. We are all lovable goobers, just waking up from a long-ass nap. It's okay if we don't all get it right away. Just play and enjoy this game. Just play, okay? We are so very dearly loved, so beloved. Always loved, loved always, love always. We'll get it all eventually, one by one. Have faith and choose joy. Letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. Questions, good questions to ask and receive. Reception, surrender, open, conceive. Perceive, receive, open and breathe. Let go of worry, let go of shame, let go of guilt. To be one again, to be love again, to be here again. Let go, surrender, and live in love again. Enjoy in fullness, in truth, in integrity, in peace, in service to all. So acceptance. Active compassion, trust, peace, grace, courage, willingness, faith, hope, receptivity, goodwill, appreciation, gratitude, inclusivity, humility, love, respect, and deep listening for understanding, coherence, and clarity, continuity, joy, anticipation, curiosity, wonder, awe, passion, and beatitudes. The full moon energies, fast-paced, the quickening, a drawing out, purification, purging, cleansing, dissolving, illuminating everything, transparency, penetrating the darkest corners of our psyches, the underbelly, the mists of illusion and time, covering over our minds, lunacy, madness of all kinds, filling the binds of our minds, letting go to unwind, alchemize, and rewind, remind, renewing the connections and the web of divine, the truth of our natures, remembering our love for all. I claim my worth. We know our worth. We are worthy. I am worthy. I am enough. We are enough. Life is enough. Love is enough. She is enough. We are enough. So be. And so, yeah, I was looking at some things last week, and it was just kind of funny. It was like that inner teacher looking for the outer teacher in certain ways, and forgetting that I had the answers inside of me always, and that whatever isn't revealed right now will be revealed later. And so it's okay to let go and embrace the unknown and just, be here. Let go. And so there was, a couple things that I was looking at, and I was like, well, yeah, if I could ask a question, to a really wise teacher, this is what I would ask. And so I was contemplating, like, what would you say about, like, the divine feminine, like the wounds of the divine feminine? Like, what would you have to say about that? And I was just, like, thinking about that, like, for a minute, and I thought about, like, an author and an artist that I really appreciate. I appreciate his wisdom. This is Lee J. McCloskey, and I was thinking, what if I had a conversation with him? Like, that would be amazing, and I would like to ask him some questions and get his, perspectives on on certain things. But then I was like, oh well, what would I ask Mother Earth as well, or the Great Mother, you know? And then I thought, well, what would myself say about this? And what does my heart have to say about this? And what does my soul have to say about this? Instead of going outside of myself and remembering, oh yeah, that's just kind of funny. And so, yeah, just what I was like just getting into. Yeah, it was the wounded feminine, the wounds of separation, seeing that our natural organic support system, the web, was broken, dishonored, and disrespected, defiled, desecrated. Yes. And so it cut off like the support and the connection that we do have, like our natural, organic, true connections with life and with each other and with ourselves and with Source and with Creator. Yeah. And this love that we are. So without like that full support, without her full support, how could humanity, life, and women show up and be fully supportive? She wasn't protected or honored and supported or allowed to express her truthfulness. So how could she fully honor, protect, care for, nurture, and show up for herself truthfully, let alone all of her loves? So I forgive myself, my family, and all the women who came before me. I forgive them for everything. I forgive them for not knowing, for forgetting. I forgive myself for my failings and my ignorance, for not knowing. I forgive and surrender to God and His infinite wisdom and grace. Yeah. So ask for healing. So yeah, I've just been looking into the collective wounds of the feminine, or the shadow feminine, because that's what's coming up again. Some of these same archetypal themes and stories and attachments to these identities, or these old beliefs, or these old inherited or implanted or adopted core belief systems that we're so attached to and can make us super prideful and rigid. And so just looking at some of those things, yeah, feeling like we are moving some super heavy shit, shuffling elephant shit that never ends. The Aegean stables in the labors of Hercules, his impossible tasks. So I wrote, yeah, divert the two rivers or the dual currents to clear all the old waste away. Water takes the path of least resistance, yielding, flowing, surrendering. Electric currents, electricity in the air, potentially explosive and fiery, suppressed emotions. Darkness of the darkest underbelly, shadow behaviors of rage, greed, fear, shame, coveting, vanity, envy, pride, and jealousy. Hypocrisy and doublespeak, cognitive dissonance equals self-deceit, ego preservation, self-armoring. Spiritual or superego, shadow side of the false light, the asleep, oblivious, and hypnotized. Entranced, brainwashed, enslaved to the lower mind, the lower emotions, and the artificial groupthink, Borg, hive mind. The whims and the phantoms, or the demons, phantasmagoria of the lower psychic mind, the immature ego, the slave, the wounded child, the poisoned caregiver, the martyr, the control freak, and the epicure, the saboteur, the whore, the martyr, the control freak, the good girl and the good boy, the bully, the orphan, the outcast, the exile, the victim, the scapegoat, the know-it-all, the boss, the tyrant, the guard, the abuser, the devil, the adversary, the challenger, the fool, the trickster, the joker, the poet, the player, the poser, imposter, fraud, pretender. Codependent narcissist, the observer and the preacher, teacher, leader, pioneer, innovator, creator, mother, father, healer, initiate, initiator, the apprentice, student, witch, wizard, weaver, brother, sister, asshole, bitch, magician, priestess. The jibber jabber, the self police, the golden child, and the black sheep. Teacher's pet, zombies, ghosts, the ghost in the machine, sacrificial lambs and sheep. Better than, lesser than, competition, rivalry, nitpicker, comparison. Monster, dragon, hero, damsel, knight in shining armor. Knight in shining armor. False messiah, false guru, false medium, wolf in sheep's clothing, smoke and mirrors, foggy minds, the mists of illusion, and linear time. Persecution themes, archetypal daddy issues, betrayal, rejection, and abandonment. Willful, ignorance, denial, or compliance, blind obedience to false authority, knee-jerk reactions, oppositional defiance, the rebel, the outsider, the prude, the forked tongue of the liar, the pimp, the whore, the victim, the wounded child, the wounded parent, the wounded tribe, the wounded healer, the wounded soldier or warrior, the fool and the trickster, the minotaur, the vampire, the succubus, codependent, martyr, the covert, fragile narcissist, the pantomime, the copycat idealist, the parrot programmer, illusionist, black magician, usurper, walking dead, skeleton woman, the wild woman, the innocent, the handless maiden, the spirit child, the outsider. The underdog, the champion, the hero's journey, the descent, the dismemberment, the separation, the wandering, the impossible tasks, the miracles of forgiveness, divine intervention, the reunion, compassion, the compassionate witness. The empath, the priestess, the devotee, the angelic, the crone, the wise one, the protector, the renewer, redeemer, the sustainer, the gardener, and the alchemist, the weirdo, the alien, the amnesiac, the bride, and the divine dreamer. So yeah, some of those archetypes coming up in certain stories in certain ways, in internal dialogue, in relationships, visions, dreams, and images. All those things. So just paying attention to what's coming up in my space, in my sacred space of my psyche and, yeah, my being. Just paying attention, bringing in the observer and the witness, and choosing to hold compassion for all of it, for all of the pain, for what I feel like I get to choose or I need to choose for my well-being, but letting go of the attachments to it and just asking for clarity and for help and letting go and choosing receptivity to receive the gifts that are being given, to honor those gifts and to honor the whole in service to all. So doing my own work and showing up and purifying and clearing these distortions within myself, and being willing to go look at where I haven't been able to go before because it was painful, because of the guilt and the shame, and then the pride that was there. Trying to get a better handle or a better understanding of that, of how that comes into play. And that can be our biggest cock blocker right there. So just thinking about, like, the cock and like the rooster and like that symbolism that came up like last week. Yeah, this is kind of funny in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, where can I go from here? Yeah, so the cock is a solar symbol, and I read like a little description about that last week because it came up in my Science and Symbols source book with a couple of other birds like raven and the stork and the sparrow, I believe. Yeah, and so just kind of looking at those kinds of things. And yeah, seeing how aggressive sometimes we need to be, or sometimes there's an imbalance in that aggression, and then that's badger medicine can help us put that back into balance and help us take the chip off of our shoulder. Yeah, so we don't need to puff ourselves up so much and have such a big head, like with that pride and everything that goes along with our superiority complexes, or like maybe inferiority. And that's why we attach ourselves to pride, because what I was reading into about pride was that it's a defense mechanism of the ego, and it's devoid of love, and it's essentially self-destructive. And so sometimes it's like we hold on to this pride because we don't want to be seen as wrong, because we've always felt so wrong, and so we need to prove ourselves right, or we need to prove ourselves worthy, or we need to prove our own power to ourselves, or that might makes right, or that we're right with like the sheer willpower, which is actually something that enslaves us and keeps us attached, like to these old patterns that keep us down and keep us chasing our own tails, reinforcing our own stories and our own victim consciousness. So it's kind of funny in a lot of ways. So one of these things that relates to pride as well, reward and punishment. Yeah. So sometimes we're afraid that we're going to be punished, or we're going to be cut off. And so we'd rather be rewarded. And so we make these like agreements with ourselves or others in our lives, and we don't realize the bargain that we're making. We don't realize what we're agreeing to. We don't realize how we're going against ourselves and going against life. But I've been recommitting to practice the 4 agreements. And so I talked about don't take anything personally, but there was this other one, always do your best. The 4th agreement is about the action of the first 3. Keep in mind that your best is not going to be the same from moment to moment. Your best will be different when you're healthy and refreshed, as opposed to sick, tired, etc. When you overdo, you go against yourself, and it takes longer to accomplish a goal. And if we give less than our best, we subject ourselves to frustration, self-judgment, guilt, and regrets. So if we give less than our best, we subject ourselves to frustration, self-judgment, guilt, and regrets. And so, yeah, that was, I think, yeah, there's something to that. With my idealist and my perfectionist, I never wanted to make mistakes, and I didn't want to be wrong, and I didn't want to be judged. And so sometimes I wouldn't even try, or maybe sometimes I would. I try so hard, but it just couldn't measure up. And then it made me not want to try anymore and just to give up. So I really did beat myself up, and I always did feel like a failure in certain ways because it was never good enough. So there's the not enough stories, right there. So the self-judgment and the guilt and the frustrations and the regret. Yeah. And so do your best and let go of the rest. When you always do your best, you take action. Doing your best is taking the action because you love it, not because you're expecting a reward. Most people do exactly the opposite. They only take action when they expect a reward, and they don't enjoy the action. If you take action for just the sake of doing it without expecting a reward, you'll find that you enjoy every action you do. Rewards will come, but you are not attached to the reward. You can even get more than you would have imagined for yourself without expecting a reward. And so that actually goes along perfectly with a page that I flipped open today in Letting Go by David R. Hawkins. And just want to share a little bit about what I got to receive today about that. And I had read this like a couple months ago, but it was really good to review and refresh, and I just flipped open the page, and it's page 124, Using Anger Positively. And it just goes into a little bit more. It is common for people to repress their anger, aggression, and inner hostility. They view it as unpleasant, undignified, and even as a moral failure or a spiritual setback. They do not realize that repressed anger is nonetheless the energy of anger, and if not acknowledged and worked through, it will have deleterious consequences to their health and overall progress. The intention behind anger is negative, and it will have similar consequences even if it is not expressed. A helpful approach is to view the energy of anger positively and to use it to fire up our ambitions and our actions in a useful way. And yeah, that's kind of what I was writing about, like, just a few minutes ago. It's just those things. The intention behind anger is negative, and it will have similar consequences even if it is not expressed. A helpful approach is to view the energy of anger positively and use it to fire up our ambitions and our actions in a useful way. And yeah. Be honest and be truthful with yourself, and you will save yourself a lot of pain, guilt, shame, and trauma. I am transparent. I am willing to see clearly all I get to see about me. Transparency, integrity, and soul strategies. Returning home to me, my wholeness that I am. Uncovering and recovering. Soul retrieval alchemy. Yeah, an old survival strategy was wanting to make others proud of me or prove that I am worthy and right to be me. That I am enough and I am understood and I am seen, I am heard, I am worthy, I am enough. To love, I love and I am loved. I am valued, I belong, I am safe and I am protected. I am right to be true to myself. I am right to be me. So the guilt and shame and fear, loathing and anxiety, vicious cycles of the emotional pain body, fear desire cycles that perpetuate and recycle so much pain and suffering through rejection, abandonment, and denial, betrayal, going against ourselves for external value, support, and secure approval within the group, the tribe, the collective, or the family. Yeah. So I wasn't being honest with myself in certain ways, and I got to see how, because it came up through different dynamics in certain relationships. And then I got to see more clearly into me and what I really needed for my true well-being. And so potentially explosive stories and repressed emotions coming up to the surface, and knee-jerk reactions, oppositional defiance, the rebel and the outsider, the prude, the saboteur, and the forked tongue of the liar. The victim and the wounded child, the wounded parent, the wounded tribe, the wounded healer, the wounded soldier or warrior. So it's the trickster at play there, too, always saying it on the outside, but then bringing it back to me to see how I can clear these distortions within myself. So let's say that we are angry at our boss and we feel resentful. He never seems to acknowledge our abilities or efforts, but we know it's unwise to express anger and resentment. It would very likely result in the loss of our job, or at least bring on the continued resentment of the boss. At best, expression of anger would result in a tacky situation. Instead, we can make a decision to use that energy in a constructive way in our own behalf. It can be the inspiration for us to create a project that, because of its excellence, proves our point. And it might be the energy for us to move up and out of a situation that is unsatisfactory. We can utilize that energy to create a new job, opportunities, or find a better job, form a committee, improve our employment situation, start a union, or whatever we think would benefit our personal goals. In personal relationships, the same opportunity exists. The anger can be utilized to inspire us to improve our communication skills, take a course on interpersonal relationships, or enroll in a self-improvement program. The anger can inspire us to rededication, to put forth greater clarity of effort, and to actually do a better job. In this way, the situation can result in recommitment. It can inspire us to look within ourselves and relinquish all the negative feelings via acceptance. Instead of being mad about it, we can accept it. Self sacrifice. There are many sources of anger. We have already mentioned that very often a complex of angry feelings is connected with fear, and the anger disappears when we let go of the fear. Another source of anger is that of pride, and especially that aspect of pride called vanity. Frequently, it is our personal pride that feeds and propagates the anger. One source of pride is connected with self sacrifice. If our relationships with others are associated with our small self in the form of sacrifice, then we are setting ourselves up for later anger because the other person is usually unaware of our sacrifice and is therefore unlikely to fulfill our expectations. So that which we want, desire, and insist upon from another person is felt by them as pressure. They will therefore unconsciously resist. In the above example, both persons are looking for acknowledgement. They want it, desire it, but block it in each other. Each side feels pressured and consequently resistant. The resistance is because pressure is always felt by us as a denial of our choice. So there's the saboteur, because the saboteur is the guardian of choice. And so, what are we denying? What choices are we denying? Each side feels pressured and consequently resistant. The resistance is because pressure is always felt by us as a denial of our choice. It is felt as emotional blackmail. The unconscious formula goes, give me what I want or I will punish you by withdrawal, anger, pouting, sulking, and resentment. We all resent feeling emotionally blackmailed. We all know the resistance we feel when we become aware that somebody is fishing for a compliment, and the same resistance goes on unconsciously as well as consciously. When we are motivated by self-sacrifice, we are pressuring the other person. Even if we force an acknowledgement, it will be a disgruntled one. A forced compliment does not satisfy. Part of the anger here arises from the pride of self-sacrifice. We have a certain secret vanity about what we are doing for others, and our pride of achievement makes us vulnerable to anger when our sacrifice is not recognized. The way to offset this anger is to acknowledge and relinquish the pride, surrender our desire for the pleasure of self-pity, and instead view our efforts on behalf of others as gifts. We can experience the joy of being generous with others as its own reward. Acknowledgement. One of the great secrets of relationship is acknowledgement. The behavior of others toward us always includes a hidden gift. Even if that behavior appears negative, there is something in it for us. Very often, that something appears in the form of a signal to us to become more aware. Let's say, for example, that somebody calls us stupid. Our natural response is one of anger. We can use the anger of that anger consciously. What is this person asking me to become more aware of? Maybe we need boundaries. Yeah. If we ask ourselves the question, we may come to the realization that we were being self centered, we were being uncaring, we were failing to acknowledge them, and we were not being conscious and aware of what was going on in the relationship. If we constantly follow this procedure, we will come to the awareness that everyone in our life is acting as a mirror. They are really reflecting back to us what we have failed to acknowledge within ourselves. They are forcing us to look at what needs to be addressed, what aspects of our smaller self needs to be relinquished. This means that we have to constantly let go of our pride in order to undo anger so that we can be grateful for the continual opportunities of growth with which we are presented in the course of everyday experience. To do this, we have to resist the temptation to indulge in making ourselves and the others wrong. If we look at the small self aspects of ourselves, we will see that making ourselves and others wrong is one of its favorite activities, e.g., politics and the media. This is because the small self is ignorant of better ways to accomplish our goals. It does not see the alternative, which is choosing to change a situation out of free choice. One way we force ourselves out of unsatisfactory situations is by making ourselves or the situation wrong. Instead of merely choosing to find a better job, for instance, our smaller self makes the job, the boss, and fellow workers wrong. Because of the picture of wrongness, the situation now becomes intolerable and we are forced to change it. How much easier it would have been had we just simply chosen to move on to a better situation. However, because of our sense of obligation, guilt is very often the block to this simpler way. Because of our sense of obligation, guilt is very often the block to the simpler way. In other words, because of what has benefited us in a situation, we feel guilty about leaving it. So the unconscious ingeniously has created the whole mechanism of wrongness to force us out of dead end situations. This often happens in interpersonal relationships where we feel that we have to make the other person wrong in order to justify leaving them. Resorting to the mechanism of wrongness is simply a denial of our own freedom to choose. One source of anger stems from the unacknowledged acts of the love that we have expressed to others. Love in this context means the everyday simple forms of lovingness that go on in every human relationship in the form of thoughtfulness, consideration, polite gestures, encouragement, and providing. Very often, an internal dialogue can go on for years about our resentment over the other person's lack of appreciation for our feelings about them. If this is so for us, it must be the case for others as well. There are people, therefore, in our life who are walking around with an endless mental stream of thoughts about us having to do with our lack of appreciation of their feelings for us. This whole arena of anger can be offset and prevented when we see the enormous value of simply acknowledging the gestures of others toward us. This means to acknowledge all of their communications to us. For instance, if friends call us on the phone, we thank them for calling us. The reason for doing this is that it makes the other persons feel complete and secure with us. It is an acknowledgement of their value in our life, and everyone feels pleased when we acknowledge their value. By this simple mechanism of acknowledgement, it is possible within a matter of days to transform all of one's relationship in a rather dramatic way. This acknowledgement does not have to go on in the outer world, but can take place within oneself. As we examine our relationships, we can ask ourselves, what have I failed to acknowledge in those with whom I have daily contact? It is a very valuable experience to pick someone in our life who, in our view, is critical toward us, and now, within ourselves, begin to look at how we have failed to acknowledge them. We surrender all of our negative feelings about them, and we begin to give them credit, affirming their value to us. Their value may simply be that they are a spur to our emotional growth and development. The nagging spouse or the scowling neighbor is trying to say something. Almost always in this sort of situation, such persons are not feeling acknowledged for the contribution they are making to our life. Once their value to us has been acknowledged, the nagging stops. So, expectations. When we stop pressuring others with our expectations, we create an opening for them spontaneously to respond positively to us. We can, in a prophylactic move, offset resentments by shifting what we have done for others from the level of sacrifice to the level of a loving gift. We can then acknowledge ourselves for this move and drop our expectations, which will dissolve the resistance in others. A simple experiment illustrates this shift. There was a man who brought back 2 new shirts from Mexico. The new shirts were of a totally different design than the kind of clothes he was accustomed to wearing. The first day that he decided to wear one of the shirts, he noticed he had an inner expectation and a sort of subtle pride in doing something new and different. However, instead of surrendering the pride, he decided to keep it. That is, he purposefully didn't use the letting go technique to surrender the pride and simply let it be there. He wanted to see what would happen, how people would respond. And that day, he proudly wore the new shirt, and sure enough, nobody even mentioned it, despite the fact that it was totally different from his usual attire. It must have really stood out, but there was not a single comment. When he went home, he had to laugh at how true was entrepreneur Robert Ringer's term for that kind of situation as the boy-girl theory. Boy wants girl, therefore girl is disinterested in boy. As soon as boy is no longer interested in girl, girl now wants boy. The next morning, he decided he would wear the other new shirt, but this time he surrendered all of his vanity and his expectations of being noticed. He let go of that little pride that he was doing something new and different, and he acknowledged the love of all of his friends and the important part they played in the happiness of his life. By the time he got through the letting go process, he was totally surrendered on wearing the shirt. He knew he was totally surrendered because it was okay if they noticed the new shirt, and it was okay if they didn't. That day was suddenly like New Shirt Day. Almost every person he met commented on the new shirt, asked him where he had gotten it, and he spent the day getting lots of attention. This experiment humorously makes the point we get what we want when we stop insisting on it. Expectation of others is a form of emotional blackmail. We can feel our resistance when others pull for certain emotional goods from us. We can get away from being emotionally blackmailed by looking at how we do it with others, and then we can let go of wanting to manipulate their emotional responses toward us. Another way of preventing anger is by making a decision within oneself no longer to accept invalidation from others or the small aspect of oneself. This decision can be in the form of a firm declaration. I will no longer accept invalidation from myself or others. I will no longer accept invalidation from myself or others. When this is coupled with the habit of acknowledging all that is positive within ourselves and others, relationships rapidly change, their potential sources of anger having been removed. Chronic resentment. Chronic, unrecognized anger and resentment reemerge in our life as depression, which is anger directed against oneself. If pushed further into the unconscious, it can re-emerge as psychosomatic illnesses. Migraine headaches, arthritis, and hypertension are frequently cited examples of chronic suppressed anger. These symptoms are very often alleviated as people learn how to let go of their inner anger. For example, in one study, blood pressure measurements of the participants were taken before and after they received instruction on how to let go of negative emotion. All the people with hypertension showed drops in their blood pressure, both the systolic and diastolic, the upper and lower numerical readings, once they started letting go of emotional pressure that they had built up over the years. The Stanford University Forgiveness Project confirms the cardiac benefits of relinquishing anger and resentment. In the program, parents of children killed in the Protestant Catholic violence in Ireland learned how to let go of their bitterness toward the enemy. Measurements of their cardiac health and physical stamina showed significant improvement. This was from Luskin 2003. Forgiveness healed their hearts, literally. As we have said before, with muscle testing, we can prove instantly that anger and resentment have a deleterious effect on the body, emotions, energy flow, and the synchronization of the brain hemispheres. Anger kills the angry person, not the so called enemy. The mind would like us to think that there is such a thing as justifiable anger, which takes the form of moralistic indignation. If we look at moralistic indignation, we will see that it is propped up by vanity and pride. We like to think how right we are in a situation and how wrong the other persons are. We get a passing cheap little satisfaction out of that, but our muscle testing proves what the cost is to our overall emotional and physical economy. The price we pay for chronic anger and resentment is sickness and premature death. Is this worth the small satisfaction of being right? The cost that we are willing to pay in these kinds of circumstances is sometimes surprising. Let's say we have a situation in which we made a loan to someone who has never paid us back. We have a chronic resentment about it, and when we meet the person socially, we say as little as possible. If we get honest with ourselves, we will likely see that we are getting satisfaction out of our being right and the other person's being wrong. In fact, we are enjoying it so much that a part of us really doesn't want him to pay off the debt, because then we would no longer be able to enjoy the secret pleasure of making him wrong. This was precisely true in a case involving several $100s. The inner decision was made on the part of the lender to be honest about all the little satisfactions of being right and making the other person wrong, and then to surrender on each one of these ego payoffs. Clearly, the ego payoffs were blocking the other person from repaying the loan. With continual surrender, the whole deal was totally let go, and a shift was made to view the loan as a gift. Admittedly, this other person had really needed the money. Why not simply see it as a gift and let go of the expectation of repayment? Now, instead of resentment, gratefulness predominated because there had been the opportunity to help another human being in a moment of real need. Within 48 hours, a check arrived in the mail for the entire amount with a note of apology for the delay in repayment. This experience and many like it demonstrate how we are all psychically connected. The internal position we hold about another person is forcing them to adopt a complementary defensive position. It is, therefore, not Pollyanna to forgive and forget, but a reasonable recognition of emotional realities. The interactions between human beings are determined by the configurations of the vibrational energies that their emotions are radiating into space. The energy of vibration and the thought form with which it is associated create a readable record. Although this common everyday experience is hardly news to most women who in our society are characteristically more intuitive, it comes as a shock and surprise to a large percentage of men. In our society, men are characteristically left brained and given to reason and logic rather than intuition, which is characterized as a right brain function. As we continue to let go of negativity and bring about inner emotional healing, there is greater balance between left and right brain function. The intuitive faculty is also available in men. They are often pleasantly surprised as they begin to recognize its emergence. It is satisfying and surprising to be able to instantly to read a situation that was totally baffling to reason and logic. The ideal situation is to form a working hypothesis with intuition and then to use reason and logic to check it out. This, of course, offsets the anger that arises from misunderstanding and miscalculation, and it increases the skillful mastery of emotions. Another thing that dissipates anger is our mere willingness to relinquish it. Willingness is our overall decision to find a better way to stop relying on anger and to move up to courage and acceptance. This willingness already starts the process of relinquishing anger. As students of the martial arts are well aware, anger indicates weakness and vulnerability. It is seen as a tool that we are handing to our opponent. We can see from muscle testing why this is so. The angry person has already lost half his muscle power and has, therefore, lost the split-second timing that is so decisive to victory in hand-to-hand combat. It is so prevalent in our society to include the propensity to anger as a male macho attribute. We hear people swelling with pride as they relate how they told that guy off. We can ask ourselves, who needs enemies? Isn't there enough negative influence in our life without adding one more? Especially when we look at the fact that all emotions generate a vibrational energy in the universe, what is the point of surrounding ourselves with negative thought forms about those we view as enemies? Why go out of our way to hold onto them as enemies by stockpiling resentments and negativity in ourselves? Likely, when we review our own personal experiences, we will see that the efforts involved in converting people we once considered enemies into friends brought gratification and a later reward. In most cases, they prove to be a positive benefit to our life. We never know whom in a later chapter of the book of life we are going to need as a friend. We need to become aware that we have unwittingly become injustice collectors. The media reports are full of this form of chronic resentment. We see injustice collecting in international relations where making the other nation wrong is actually a primary objective. We are unconsciously programmed to believe that injustice collecting is normal. In contrast to this habitual pattern, which is destructive and weakening, the letting go technique frees us from keeping close account of the wrongs made against us. Our time and attention are freed up to see the beauty and opportunity around us. Anger is binding, not freeing. It connects us to another person and holds them in our life pattern. We are stuck in the negative pattern until we let go of the energy of anger and its little payoffs of righteous indignation, feeling wronged, and the desire for revenge. It may not be exactly the same person who constantly recurs in our life. If not that person, then others will appear who have the same quality that triggers our anger and resentment. This will keep recurring until we finally handle our inner angriness. This will keep recurring until we finally handle our inner angriness. Then suddenly people with that quality disappear from our life. Therefore, anger may force someone to be physically distant from us, but physically or psychically it binds them to us more closely until we fully relinquish the anger and resentment. Relinquishing anger brings us many benefits. We are free to experience emotional comfort and ease, gratitude for the daily opportunities to grow and heal, mutual caring with another without subtle strings attached, improvement in health, and more life energy. These breakthroughs allow us to move up to a more effective and effortless state of inner freedom. And so that was from the chapter of anger and letting go. And I was sharing from the chapter 9 of pride in the last few videos. And joy and gratitude. Because pride is sometimes seen as a motivator of achievement, what would be its higher level substitute? One answer would be joy. And what is wrong with joy is the reward for successful achievement rather than pride. because pride carries with it desire for recognition from others, and consequently there is a vulnerability to anger and disappointment if it is not forthcoming at some point. If we achieve a certain goal for the pleasure, enjoyment, love of accomplishment, and the inner joy that it brings to us, we are invulnerable to the reactions of others. And so, yeah, I'll just leave it there for now. With that, Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender by David R. Hawkins. And so, yeah, that was funny. Yeah, to handle. And it was just brought me back to the hands, to the handless maiden, and to that story that I've been kind of digesting and letting it kind of percolate and ferment and kind of like stewing in this soup. Yeah. And so that is kind of funny because of like, yeah, some of the things that I had written today. Because, yeah, I was just kind of like feeling resentful and a little bit like, yeah, having those or witnessing, bringing in the observer and watching and witnessing like some of these wounded aspects at play within my psyche, like coming up to be seen, to show me and accept this invitation to come back home to me. And so just kind of like writing it out and writing out all of these things that I'm looking into. And so it's like, please save me, baby Jeebus, from this stupid asshole play. LOL, what the fuck is grape juice anyway? Stupid fucking people. But I really love some of these brainwashed, well-meaning people who are being manipulated, abused, lied to, riled up, and yeah, being abused, lied to, riled up, and used. So confused. So how might I be playing into this stupid fucking liar game too? I just give it all back to you. I surrender and forgive you for not knowing. I dissolve and release any agreements I made to continue all of these blame, shame, guilt games, ridiculous lies, and not enough stories. Bullshit soup and conspiracy realities. Yeah. So how am I sabotaging my power and giving it away? How do I deplete myself of nourishment and vitality? How do I let my anger boil up so that it boils my blood and overflows? Am I holding on to feelings, positive or negative, that I'm unwilling to give up? What is the purpose of pride? What is the payoff? Why do I seek it? For what does it compensate? What do I get to realize about my own true nature in order to let pride go without a feeling of loss? So I'm going to look into those questions. And don't take anything personally. Always do my best. Taking actions to express my care, to be, honor, share, receive the gifts that are available here and being given to me and we, through me and we, yeah, through all of this continuity. And so genuine self-esteem is that inner awareness and that inner knowing, like knowing and remembering our worth and our value, our own worth and our own value. And so once we know something and once we love something, then pride is no longer like needed. And so, yeah, we are enough. We are loved. We are worthy. We know our own value and the truth of who we are. If we love something, we know its worth and value. Our love and appreciation for what we value is solid, and there is no need to defend it or to feel prideful, on guard, aggressive, or defensive. Pride infers subtly that there is room for debate and that the worth of something is open to question. So the smaller that we feel, within, the more we need to compensate for an inner sense of inadequacy, unimportantness, valuelessness by the substitution of the emotion of pride. The more we surrender our destructive, rigid emotions, beliefs, images, false images, the less we will rely on the crutch of pride. The truly humble cannot be humbled. They are immune to humiliation. True humility is experienced as peacefulness. So they have nothing to defend, the truly humble. There is nothing to be offended by and no need to react. What is the purpose of pride? So Once we have consciously contacted the truth of our real beingness, the nature of our inner self, with all of its true innocence, greatness, and nobility of the human spirit, we no longer need pride. We just know what we are, and this self-knowledge is sufficient for us. That which inflates the ego does not result in inner strength, a tireless preoccupation with appearance and what other people will think. So there is a constant vulnerability to the opinions of others. When we let go of our need for external validation or ego validation or to prove ourselves right, then the challenges against us fall away. Healthy pride is genuine self-esteem and inner awareness of one's true value and worth. This inner awareness is different from the energy of pride. Self-awareness of one's true value is characterized by lack of defensiveness. That which we truly know never needs defense. Once we have consciously contacted the truth of our real beingness, the nature of our inner self, with all its true innocence, greatness, and nobility of human spirit, we no longer need pride. We just know what we are, and this self-knowledge is sufficient for us. So, yeah. Gonna just leave that there for now. What else wants to be shared? So some of those realizations, some of those realizations that I was having about all of that, because certain things kept coming up, and it's like, wow, I'm not done with this yet, I guess. I can always redirect my energy and my focus and my attention, but if it keeps coming up to bother me and to poke me and to irritate me, there's something in it for me. There's a gift, and there's something that's asking to be reclaimed. And so, just following through with it and asking for help to receive, and then just calling in that compassionate witness, just to be love right here with me, for me, through being me, through being love for all of me. And so just choosing not to take things personally, and knowing that everyone's having their own experience and it's not really about me, and that there's nothing to defend. And but there is definitely that protection, to protect what we love and to honor what we hold dear, and to stand up for that and to speak up for that and to ask for what we need. So when we don't take anything personally, we can ask for what we need. We can say, I love you, without the fear of rejection and self-judgment. We can choose to follow our hearts and live. And so, the miracles of forgiveness, of forgiving ourselves and forgiving each other for not knowing, and for, allowing ourselves to all have our ignorance and our innocence, and our wisdom and our folly, and knowing that we all have our limitations, our strengths, and our potential to develop and to grow and to mature and to become who we really are, to remember who we are, and to choose that for ourselves. So I feel pretty complete now with what I got to share. So thanks for listening, and thanks for being here. What are you experiencing in your journey and in through your journey of awakening and remembering? And what's coming up for you to review and to practice and to play with and to play through? All right. Well, love y'all. Take good care of yourselves. Be love for yourselves. Choose love for yourself. Be well. Okay. Bye for now.